So it's 11 o'clock and we'll get started. Good morning. My name is Jan Schmitz from the Edmonton Pride Seniors Group. It's February 23rd, and thank you all for attending our weekly Aging with Pride session. Our group is for the 2SLGTBQ2IA seniors and their allies. Thank you too to our partners, SAGE and the Pride Center of Edmonton. Before I introduce our speakers, I must acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our lives. I must let you know that this session is being recorded for future use on our YouTube channel. If you don't wish your image to be recorded, please close your video feed. And now, with great pleasure, I would like to introduce our speakers. Born in Edmonton, Guy was the first chair of the Education Committee at HIV Edmonton. After 17 years as an outpatient social worker at the Southern Alberta HIV Clinic in Calgary, he and his husband retired to Vancouver Island for 11 years. They returned to Edmonton in 2018, longing to be closer to cultural venues and to bask in the winter sun, having tired of 6 months of winter rain on the West Coast. They are both delighted in the opportunities afforded by the standardized patient program at the U of A's facility of Dentistry and Medicine. He is also a volunteer at the AGA, that must be the Art Gallery of Alberta, helping to improve programming for seniors. Petra Duncan originally hails from Southern England and began working at the University of Alberta in 2008 as a standardized patient trainer for the Standardized Patient Program, the SPP, at the Health Science Education and Research Commons. Today, the SPP is run out of one of the top health academies on campus. It's housed in the Edmonton Clinic Health Academy on campus. Petra has a background in business and also in the theater industry, having been involved in acting, directing, and playwriting. Currently, she is the simulation educator at the center, preparing and training standardized patients to provide simulated experiences in a safe environment for our health team, students of the future. She is thrilled to be here and wants to thank everyone for the opportunity to present the Simulation Center and the SP program to our organization. Over to you, Guy.
Thank you, Jen, for a very warm welcome. I was thinking that all of us would understand that when you retire, one of the things you search for is someplace where you can participate in life, use your knowledge, your skills, and do something meaningful and, perhaps contribute to society or the community or to the next generation. And it took me a long time to find a program like this. When I'm at the art gallery, what I do is I cut paper. And when I did the income tax program with SAGE and the CRA for a couple of years, and it was a nightmare. The computers were always doing stupid things and you didn't know how to solve the problem. So this program is perfect. It's just enough. It uses your knowledge. It lets you to be a community actor, and it gives you chances to learn and have fun with other people. So I'm really delighted to be able to speak about it. It was an exercise buddy at the Y who told me about the program, and he encouraged me to apply, and I did that online, filled out a very straightforward application. And in about a couple of months, it takes them a couple of months to actually interview you because they have a backlog of folks who are trying to get in. They gave us a simple screen test. So it's a real simple scenario. And they basically are just seeing if you can memorize things, if you can stay on track, and if you can handle straightforward medical questions. So I passed, and it was a slow beginning, but it has gotten more and more involved over the last couple of years. So during COVID, it was awesome because I was able to stay busy. Once a week, I got out of the house to do something. The pay is modest, but it's lovely. They basically pay us $16 an hour for simple things. and up to $25 for more complicated things. They always pay us for a minimum of 3 hours, and they give us a parking allowance. So if it's under 4 hours, we get $7, and I think if it's over that, we get 12.
That's right.
So basically, I was reminded to say it's not enough to live on. It's not a regular job, but it really helps for, buying massages or a piece of art that, one needs to have.
I bought all my lawn furniture when I was an SK.
There you go. It's perfect. So we see this incredible range of students and an incredible range of professions. When we start with the first year medical students, they have us as physical examination models. So basically we just sit on a hospital bed, wear a hospital gown, and the doctors start to teach them about the basics of heart, lung, liver, spleen, and all of the other stuff in the middle. And one of the funniest moments I recall was the quite seasoned doc walking up to my torso and looking at his students and in my chest and saying, "Now, remember in anatomy, do you remember where his liver should be?" And they're all going, "Yeah, yeah. Well, imagine his liver here." And so he touches my liver. And I'm going, "Yeah, but I'm still breathing." And then he got them to do their thing. It's really funny to see them, the brand new students. They're very keen, they're enthusiastic. In one of the classes, they walk in with their stethoscopes in boxes, unassembled, and they're in there pulling all this stuff out and trying to figure out how to screw them together and what goes, and they're comparing ends, and they all discover they have different ends, and they discover they're the wrong ones, and they're all freaking out. And the doctor walks in and says, "It's okay, I will teach you how to use this one. It's pediatric, but we can use it." And they're going, "Oh, thank God." Anyway, so that's the first year. The first years are pretty straightforward. You're just there. With the second years, they change it up and more serious. They use us for a whole bunch of course examinations. And so in the second year, they give them quite a cross section of topics. And the one that I recall was an exam I did for sexual history taking. And what my role was is I was a 40-year-old guy living in a same-sex relationship. We had just adopted a kid. I was impotent, but I couldn't use the words because I didn't know them. I was really shy and uncomfortable about talking about it. And I somehow had to communicate to this poor student that that's why I was there and that I needed some guidance. So in the midst of this presentation, unexpectedly for me, I started crying. And this poor student was beside himself. He couldn't believe I was there doing this, crying. I was afraid that my partner was going to leave me with the little girl. Anyway, when we were finished, he turned to his preceptor and said to her, "He cried." And she goes, looks at him sympathetically and goes, "Yes, they cry every day." And he looks at her then and says, "I didn't know what to do." And he just threw up his arms in frustration. She said, "It's all right, sweetie. Sit down. We're going to spend 45 minutes talking about it." So it was quite something. I'm just thinking that I might have missed one thing. Yeah. When we get to the fourth year students, it's a very significant moment for them because they have to pass a very serious national exam to show that they have all the basic competencies to get released into a residency program and also to do more serious work in hospitals. So when we do the national exams for the fourth years, one of the characteristics of the exam is that they're held across the country at the same time, and all the students across the country have to be asked the same questions. So they're very tight with us. We have to memorize an opening statement. We have to have a whole bunch of oblique answers to unexpected questions so that we don't mislead them or get them off on the wrong track. And we have to be very sober and respectful of the examiner who's also in the room. So those ones are much more nerve-wracking. Nerve-wracking for us, and I feel sorry for the poor students because they have to go through 20 or 16 scenarios, one after the other every 10 minutes. So they really have to show their stuff. But it's fascinating as a volunteer doing it because we're listening for different kinds of things. So one of the things we're listening to is, are they using open-ended questions versus closed-end questions? It's one of the biggest struggles they have with the students, is to encourage them to always ask open-ended questions. And then the other one is our favorite little trick that Petra always is teaching us about. The students, like, we're living with the iPhone generation and they love to ask questions in threes. So they'll do things like smoking, drinking, drugs. And so we're trained to answer the last question. So I'll be a 70-year-old and they'll ask me a question like that. I'll say, no drugs. But they missed all about my bottle a day and my cigarette smoking. And I say nothing unless they bring it up. So they have to learn to ask one thing at a time and go slow and give people time to answer that stuff. So those were, like, that's kind of a little picture about working with medical students. I was going to just paint a picture of working just with a few other disciplines. And the one that I remember I did just before Christmas was with occupational therapy. And they were just completing their course on mental health. And so in that scenario, I was a fellow with PTSD. I'd just been discharged from the armed forces. I was depressed. I was angry. I was drinking too much. We always drink too much. And I was there because I wanted to be a real man and get a job again. So, that's really easy for me to do. Anyway, the most fascinating thing to me about it was this OT students are being trained to use new tools. And one of the tools, they walked in and said to me, "What's your favorite music?" And I looked at them and went, "Hey, this is a 45-minute thing. This is an exam. Like, you don't care what I listen to." They said, no, we want to know your favorite music. I went, really? And there's that, okay, I'm going to have fun with this. My favorite artist is Petula Clark. And they go, who? And I just went, hey, you wanted my music? I want Petula Clark. So, of course, he whipped out his iPhone, typed her in, and for the next 45 minutes, we listened to the greatest hits of PC. Anyway, that was lots of fun. And then another set of students brought in this great big life board instead of their notes. And I said, well, what the hell's that for? And they said, oh, we're going to do your life history. And the upper quadrant is your external life and the below quadrant is your internal life. And we're going to make this lovely picture and make sense of it all and make you all better in 45 minutes. And good luck with that. Anyway, it was lots of fun. Another really fun story is when I worked at NATE. And that day they were training a new cadre of professionals who are going to be both a combination phlebotomist and X-ray technician for emergency departments. And so my role was to be a drunk, and I was told to be sexist, uncooperative, and just make it as difficult as I possibly could. So there I was sitting in the emergency room, fast asleep, unresponsive. Then they finally got me into a wheelchair. No sooner had they got me into the wheelchair that I innocently looked up at them and said, I have to pee. And it totally messed them up. When we dealt with that issue, they got me into the X-ray room and they couldn't decide how to get a drunk onto the big X-ray bed. And they figured out a compromise was just use my hand on the bed. And as soon as they got themselves all ready to take the picture, I went, oh, I have to throw up. And again, it just melted down. They had no idea what to do with me. So anyway, those were some other professional groups we worked with. The last one we just started doing work with is at the Cross Cancer Institute. And there I've done different kinds of things. One was I had to be a late stage cancer patient, and the students had to tell me that I was dying. And that was kind of a remarkable experience, and also a lesson to me. They have to pass that course before they get to practice as students in a hospital. And one of the things I learned during that particular examination was Alberta has a brand new document called the Levels of Care. So you don't necessarily have to have your lawyer do your personal health directives. It's possible for you and your doc. It can be any healthcare professional can construct the Levels of Care document. And it's quite clever in that it talks about give me everything, something in the middle, or palliative care. And the something in the middle is the part that Alberta has really made flexible. And so you could say whatever you want for levels of care. So an example is you want everything but somebody to be on your chest to revive your heart. But the most significant thing in how most of the students managed to fail that particular course is it's one of the few documents around that doesn't require a signature. And that was the last question. Does this document need a signature? And they all go, oh, of course it needs a signature. We've all been raised to sign. I always sign. It's the only document in healthcare that doesn't require a signature. Anyway, it was lots of fun and I learned a lot. That's a lot of the people stuff. I'm going to just mention one more thing and then turn it over. We're also learning about some new technologies and some dreams about how they would like healthcare to unroll in the future. And one part of the dream is to make ultrasounds available at the bedside rather than downstairs in another department. So they've developed both iPad-size portable units that can be carried around a ward, or they're also adapting people's personal iPads to be used as ultrasounds. And they have these special things they plug into them that they call butterflies, and they dial into some program in some computer, and it becomes an ultrasound. And the pictures are extraordinary, and the techniques are amazing. And we've done it now for about 2 years. Almost every month, we're doing an ultrasound course. And my partner is getting really good at telling them how to set up all the settings on their screens and how to adapt and how not to move that thing around and how to get under and around a rib. And it's an amazing thing. And for the docs, what they say is it helps us make quick, dirty diagnosis. We don't have to guess anymore. If we're pretty sure, we can have a quick look, confirm that that's what it is, and then deal with it. Or when they're using all those lovely needles to like irrigate fluids from within, they don't miss and puncture an organ. This ultrasound guides them through. So it's kind of a remarkable thing. So when I reflect about all of this stuff, one of the things that's quite extraordinary to me over the 4 years is that there's such an incredible range of personalities involved in wanting to practice medicine. And you start to appreciate how different skill sets and different personalities will fit in differently in different places. So there's the odd one who just like shines and go, oh, they have to be in pediatrics or family medicine. And then you get the other who's brilliant, but they really need to be in pathology. And I know that Larry's here, so I thought I would throw that in just to give him a little amusement. But yeah. And then when I think about some of the side effects for me or benefits, unexpected benefits, we're always working with really mature professionals who've been in their professions for like 40 years. So I've worked with the head of cardiology, the head of intensive care at the university, the head of the Rainbow Clinic at Grant MacEwan University. And so we have these incredible conversations in between the students. And so it's been lots of fun just to talk to them. And we also see the incredible range of students coming. So there's clearly a gender balance between men and women. There's also folks who are trans who are wanting to practice medicine, and it's kind of it's a really remarkable thing. And people from all over the world as well. here as students, and you see them and you go, this is remarkable. And some of the most conservative folks you come across are really good at doing their stuff, like sexual history taking. It's, it's very humbling to see their skills and abilities. I also learned more about my body, and I think I can be now a better patient with my poor old family doctor, who twice now has seen me with SPs that he's training, and they walk in with their SPs, and I go, yeah, I know, you're a second year student. I know the drill. Anyway, we've met some incredible volunteers. We've had some incredible support from the staff, and it's just one small effort in trying to help the next generation of practitioners be better and help the system be better. That's basically what I have to say. No
Thank you,
tears
Guy.
until later.
Thank you so much, Guy. And it's such, there's nothing more gratifying than receiving a handshake from a student who thanks you for giving them the opportunity to practice before they go out there in the real world. So thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen, and I want everyone to give me a thumbs up if you can see it, okay? There we go. Because I'm not best on technology, so I'm just gonna, there we go. Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah?
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, all right. Now see, all right. So welcome to the Standardized Patient Program. This building that you see in this first picture, that's where we're located. We're right opposite the University of Alberta Hospital, and we're the colored glass building. Sometimes they call us the Lego building. So let's just go like that. So this is the agenda. And of course, Jan gave us some lovely introductions, and Guy's done his beautiful piece about what it's like to be a standardized patient. Now I'm going to just go through a little bit of information for you, just so that you know. So we're going to start with what is a standardized patient, because quite often when I tell people, oh, I'm a simulation educator, they all go, what does that mean? So anyways, this here is the original definition many years ago, back in the day. Dr. Howard Barrows, back in the 60s, I believe, when he first started looking at simulation, this is what the original definition is. So a person who has been carefully coached to simulate an actual patient so accurately that the simulation cannot be detected by a skilled clinician. In performing the simulation, the simulated patient presents the gestalt of the patient being simulated, not just the history, but the body language, the physical findings, and the emotional and personality characteristics as well. So that's what we originally were designed with. And nowadays it's changing rapidly because, of course, there are 5 different types of simulation, which I'm going to share with you. But now, of course, we also say that a standardized patient is a person who's been coached to recreate the history, personality, and physical findings of an actual patient in a realistic and consistent manner. And so today we mainly do physicals, interviews, histories, but we've had some very unusual bookings. Just this past week, we've been working with a group who are learning how to take an unconscious bariatric patient and be able to put them in a special lift and lift them out of the bed with all their tubes and all their stuff on them still, and how you do that gently so that you can take them to go for x-ray. They're unconscious, they're dead weight. What do you do? And so by using a standardized patient, they know when it hurts. They know when they're prodding their eye. or something like that. So, you know, these are all things that have been very important. And these are not just students. We also have a lot of professionals, health professionals that come through to do courses here as well. So these pictures that you see are standardized patients that are in our program. Why do we do this work? Well, as you can see, there's quite a list as to why we educate. Reduction in student anxiety, educated feedback from patients' perspective, authenticity, consistency, and accuracy. The list goes on, and our main task is to provide a safe environment for the new doctors, nurses, and all healthcare professionals to practice their skills. And it's the old saying at the bottom there, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, because it needs to be a safe environment where it's okay to make mistakes. That's where you learn. And I always tell standardized patients, you are the learning tool. The real education happens afterwards during their briefings. So here you see a young girl, and she's being coached actually by a nurse. And she's very upset because her baby's very ill, and she's being helped. And in the previous picture, you saw one of our standardized patients with a broken arm, and they're tending to it. So I've got lots of pictures to show you, but one of the styles of simulation is, of course, as I mentioned, history, interview taking. And so here at the Simulation Center in health sciences, which is in that beautiful Lego building, we do have 24 clinical rooms, which means that we can put lots of students through all at the same time. And here, of course, you're watching an interview. So the person with the clipboard there is actually an examiner or a facilitator. And then you see the student with his stethoscope already in place. And then you have, of course, our patient. So this here, we have what's called a smart condominium. And everybody would love to live here because it's the perfect condo, has everything in it. This is a shared resource actually with another department on campus. Computers and robotics, because we look into different things that will help people within the home, things that you could use to make your life much easier. And so, for instance, there's sensors in the floor so that if this person falls and hurts themselves, there is an alarm system that goes through to hospital, that kind of thing. And so here you see our patient and his wife and 2 healthcare workers that have come to visit him at home. He's not compliant. He's being very naughty. He's eating lots of chips and all over the places, cans and candy wrappers. And his wife is trying desperately to get him to comply and take his medications, but he's not. So that's why the healthcare workers are there today. So this is in a large scenario. We have several large areas where we can run pandemics. We can run large hospital corridor scenarios and large room scenarios. And we can also do emergency room. And so that's what you're seeing here. What you're also something to note is that you're seeing in this picture that they're using mannequins, and that's another form of simulation using mannequins. Our mannequins are very heavy, very expensive because they breathe, they can bleed, they blink, their eyes can dilate, their toes and fingers can change color. They can do a lot of things now. And of course, you can have a voice coming out of them as well. Their tongues swell, all kinds of things. And so here we also have another of our specialty care rooms. This room is for bariatric patients, and we have bariatric suits here that are weighted so that the standardized patient who is more thin can wear it and create a person who is large. We also have some large people within the standardized patient program, but not all scenarios are good for them to play. In this particular case, he's fallen out of bed and they're trying to get him back into bed. We believe in interprofessional work here, which means that we like to bring everybody together so that they understand each other's disciplines. So for instance, here, there's a nurse, there's also somebody from physical therapy, and then somebody from occupational therapy, and then a doctor as well. So they're all taking part in helping him get back up again. So we also have a critical care room, which is set up for surgery. We're not what we call a wet lab, where we bring in real part bodies. What we do is we make them out of rubber. We have fake everything here because it's simulation, so all kinds of fake liquids and fake blood, fake pills, and they can practice in a safe environment working on different patient skills. So where you can't use perhaps a standardized patient when you want to open up a patient, then of course we would use a mannequin. And we also use task trainers as well, which I will show you. That's part bodies. So here we have one of our clinical rooms again. And this is showing what we call hybrid simulation. What that means is that we are integrating standardized patients with mannequins. So this patient's had 2 babies, she's had twins, and she's having some complications, and she's not comfortable. So in this particular case, the nurse is working with her. In this particular scenario, this is done in another room where we call it our resource room. All the rooms here actually at the simulation center are adaptable. We can put together any scenario. So for instance, sometimes we'll do things like hoarding, and I will completely fill that smart condominium with boxes and stuff, and so they can barely get in there. Or we will do, you know, a situation where they're being non-compliant and perhaps they haven't changed a dressing for a day or two. There's dirt everywhere, and it's just not a nice scenario. So the great thing is that the students are learning to walk into the room and take a look at the environment. In this particular case, these are paramedics, and they have been called because this particular patient is having a mental health break. And so they are trying to calm her down and treat her because she's also slashed her wrists as well. In this particular scenario, this is in one of our interview rooms. This is where we get the groups together. So nowadays, when you go to hospital, there's always a team that takes care of you, or there should be. And I'm sure Larry's experiencing that right now, where the team gets together and decides on how they're going to handle you. And so this is who we call Mr. Morehouse in the yellow gown, and his wife sitting next to him. And she's describing why he cannot come home right now. This is a very popular scenario here because, of course, the wives or husbands need to advocate for their spouses. And if if you can't handle it at home, then you need to say why, so that the team can work on keeping them in hospital, or finding a good location for them to go to, so that they can get better. So here we have, we're using a corridor here. This particular mannequin, we fake everything, like I say, and you can see he's thrown up, he's fallen on the ground, he's cut his head open, but you can't see it in the picture. This would be a good simulation for doctors, nurses, paramedics, ambulance drivers, anybody who would be at a scene of an accident. So sometimes we do work with people like the police force when we do simulation. So we provide realistic and valuable clinical teaching in many different areas that I've mentioned. We do interviews, we do history taking, we do physicals. We also do a lot of ethical dilemmas, conflict resolutions, and the students are learning better communication because of us. In the old days, when I first became a standardized patient back in 1980 something, some of the doctors were not comfortable at all talking about end of life, and they would leave it to the nurses. And that's very unfair. And you need proper training for that. And so these are the kinds of things that today we're all taking responsibility, and each member of the healthcare team needs to understand how better to communicate with every patient. So we do one-on-ones, we do small groups, we do large groups, we do in-class presentations, we do video recordings. We also have film groups that come here as well, because they like to use our centre because we look like a hospital as well. For instance, a long time ago, I was asked to go along to do a role of a schizophrenic person. Unfortunately, the real person who was schizophrenic had disappeared, and the professor couldn't find them within the university. And so I got called out to go and present the role of a schizophrenic person in front of 200 students. Now, these are things that us in the standardized patient program, we work with all the departments and the faculties so that we understand how to train the standardized patients, so that I can better explain to you how you would move as a schizophrenic person, what you would be seeing, what you would be hearing, what possibly you would be terribly afraid of, those kinds of things. So we work very closely with each of the departments and the faculties here on campus. We also work with, as Guy mentioned, Nate, and we also work with McEwen, Braden, Norquest, any of the health buildings or locations around the city and surrounding areas. Yeah. Here we have another picture we're showing here, again, hybrid simulation, where you see a wife and her husband in the bed there. And then, of course, you're seeing an emergency situation as well, just with a mannequin. And you'll notice the middle one here says high stakes examinations. And that's what Guy was eliminating to when he said, oh, we do licensing exams. So when you work licensing exams with us, you are paid quite well. Licensing exams pay more than daytime work. But they are on the weekends, and most of the training is in the evenings. You do have to be, there are more rules and regulations when you do those types of bookings. You're paid by the hour, and then you also get all your parking. You don't get a parking allowance, you actually get a parking pass. And you get lunch too. They provide you with lunch.
That's good
So
lunch.
I know it's a good lunch, isn't it? So yeah, so it's always good to do the licensing exam.
And we're sworn to secrecy.
Yes, yes, you can't talk to anyone. So some more pictures here demonstrating different types of standardized patient work. This is a manual lift. Some of you may have seen that before. And again, that's in our specialty care suite. The other one is also in the specialty care suite, but it's a different, this patient can't breathe. Again, these are all standardized patients wearing, we call them empathy suits, but quite a lot of times we will get the students to put them on as well, so that they understand what it feels like to have a lot of weight on your body. Also, what it feels like for, you know, how you would cut something on a counter space, how you walk downstairs because you can't see your feet. This kind of thing, and it's so important to teach them. And so sometimes we have students come from abroad, and not all countries have weight issues. So when you're thinking of Japan, China, they don't have a lot of large people like we do in America or Canada. And so what happens is they're quite surprised and their eyes get quite large when I show them our bariatric suite with everything that we have. Our actual, thing that we use to move them around with, it can take a weight of a small car. So just to give you an idea. Yeah. We also have very heavy mannequins as well. The firemen like to use them because how are you going to get a large person who's 500 pounds out of a window if there's a fire? You know, these are all things that we don't think about as individuals. It's very, very important for them to learn these things. So here you see, I've done a little bit of a collage here. This is a simulation that we call Yes, Can We Dance, Dolly? And it's a lady who has Alzheimer's, and she's very difficult to control. And in this particular scenario, she just wants to dance with the doctors and the nurses, and she won't do anything she's supposed to do with her therapy. The other picture is somebody in isolation. Sometimes we'll have the high schools come, and we'll get all the kids to put on the yellow gowns and masks and go in and visit a patient who's in isolation. And that's part of our program to introduce children and students, young students, to healthcare and get them involved. We want more cultures. We are particularly involved in a lot of Indigenous schools, where we would like to encourage them to come and take up medicine. Some more pictures here. I thought you might like to see lots of pictures. So more surgery pictures. And then this is what we call a task trainer. In the picture where you see the half body on the ground there, sometimes you don't need the whole body to be able to practice and work in your field. And so, you know, and sometimes like when you're practicing injections, we use pads. If you're going to have, for instance, a standardized patient and you need to inject something, what they do is they put a false arm beside the standardized patient in the bed so that they're going to inject that false arm and not really the standardized patient. As a standardized patient, the students also know respect. We might get poked and prodded about and investigated, but there is no exposure done, and there's no actual events like injections. So the types of work that we do are with mannequins, with standardized patients, with those task trainers, which are parts of bodies. We also do hybrid, which means that it's a standardized patient with another simulation type of equipment, or it might just be 2 pieces of other simulation equipment. But that's what we mean by hybrid. And the fifth one that I haven't really talked about much is virtual. And so right now I'm actually involved in applying for a grant to work more in virtual areas. And the reason for that is we're hoping that we can reduce anxiety within students by giving them an opportunity to practice in a virtual environment. The other picture that you see, and it's difficult to see the mannequins in them, but that is actually our one of the control rooms. Because when the students are working with either mannequins or standardized patients in the room, the professors and faculty members are on the other side of one-way glass, so that they can't see you, but they can see you, and the students can't see them. Helps for reality. I'm going to brush past this actually. I was hoping that we would have time to do a demonstration, but in order to finish up today, we can do a demonstration another time. I was going to put you through your paces there.
I lost a night of sleep for nothing.
Oh dear. What I'd like to do is thank you so much for joining me on my tour through the Simulation Center and also the Standardized Patient Program. I'm going to put it in the chat section, but this is my email address if you'd like more information or you would like the link to actually audition and become a standardized patient for a program. If you're not in Edmonton, there are lots of standardized patient programs in every province. All you need to do is take a look at your local hospitals, or sometimes your universities have a standardized patient program. If you Google it, you'll be able to find the right person to contact in that city. I do know most of them around the country, so if you're having trouble finding perhaps a contact in BC or in Ontario, I'm very happy to help you with that because we talk to each other all the time and keep up on our technology. So at this point, I'm going to actually change back to the screen so that you can see Guy and I as large people and get away from this so that we can take questions from you. Stop sharing.
Wow, that's amazing, Petra. That's so impressive. Does anyone of the participants have any comments or questions for either Guy or Petra?
Yes, I've just asked one. Hi, I'm Gina.
Hi, Gina.
Hello, Guy. I'm curious, Guy, you flips around medical terminology that I'm unfamiliar with. Do we get orientation and training? You haven't referenced that.
Jargon alert.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do when we're doing our homework and preparation. And ironically, one of the main things they want us to always challenge the students is don't let them use medical terminology on us. Like the second year students love to oscillate your chest, and every time they say it, I go, what? And they go, what do you I have no idea what that means.
You have to be very careful because what happens is as standardized patients, you actually start to learn a lot of medical terms and you start to learn a lot about medicine generally. And that can be dangerous as well. So you have to be very careful how you use it. But when you are working as a standardized patient, you need to be just a regular person. So if they say things like, well, you're having a myocardial infarction, your job is to say, what does that mean? To make sure that they explain everything, because sometimes doctors do use terms that we don't understand, even simple terms sometimes. So it's just a matter of, when we train, I always remind everybody and always say, make sure you don't use any medical terms, and that you ask what everything means.
But you don't necessarily have to be a trained actor.
Not
for
at
this.
all. Actually,
So if you're selected, what kind of training and orientation is
So
provided?
yeah, so the first standardized patients were actually not actors. They were, just people out of the community. We have a wide range of people in different areas. They either own their own businesses, they're retired, they might be students, stay-at-home mums and dads, not just trained actors. And so what happens is that when you're coming in to train for a role, we provide you with a script that you take a look at beforehand. We go through the script. We talk about how to portray your particular patient. And then we go on and do some practice. And we also teach you how to give feedback.
Okay, my other question, I don't want to hog the screen here, but was the time commitment per case, or once a month or twice a week? Or...
So it depends on what you want to get involved in. This is contract work. It is not full-time. Okay. And so usually what I do is I send out emails to those that I think are appropriate for certain roles. And say, hey, are you available at this time? You don't always need training for every role. Sometimes you're ad-libbing and just be yourself, that kind of thing. Because sometimes they just need patients to perhaps do blood pressure, or just be a physical exam body, those kinds of things. So your commitment can be a minimum of 3 hours, and that might be without training, or sometimes I'll have people working all week, and they might have 2 hours of training. You're paid for both your training and the work that you do.
Thank you. I guess I was just concerned with other things in your life that are commitments, travel, not being available all the time, and how that worked. That's good. Thanks.
And also too, sometimes people get sick. Cars don't start in this weather. And that's when I have to call out somebody in an emergency. So I've got SPs, standardized patients that live close to the university that are willing to hop in and just do a role. Even if they are 90 years old and they're playing a 16-year-old, there's somebody there to do it. And the students,
okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenna. Joan, did you have your hand up?
Yes. Hi, that was really informative. I'm just curious if you could expound a little bit more on ethical dilemmas. You mentioned the, death and dying kind of thing, but what would be another example perhaps of a ethical dilemma?
Religious is another one. We often have things like blood transfusions. Also too, for the longest time, I used to go out to clinics and pretend that I was an actual patient, and that I was in love with my doctor, and that I've been trying to get a hold of him, and of course and make them squirm, because they don't know how to, they should know how to handle those things by law, and of course everything you talk about is confidential. And so I would cry and I would say, I don't know what to do, and I would really like to contact this doctor and make it really difficult, that kind of thing. So it's all kinds of legal as well as religious. It might be it could, well, what other ethical?
Well, so I had one last week where I was the son, and the whole focus of the exam was talking to a family member. And I was not supposed to fess up about my mom's drinking, but my mom was delirious. And they were baffled about what was going on. And they had to ask really good open-ended questions before they would get me to start to tell them the facts about what was going on with my mom. Because I was trying to protect her. I didn't want to violate her privacy and her confidentiality. And it's really hard for the students to figure out when you're guarding and hiding. So it's really a really good case scenario for them.
Thank you. And also one quick question. Do you use child actors at all, like for other scenarios? Like
Sorry?
children? Or do you ever use kids as actors?
Okay, so we're allowed to use children for licensing exams because they have insurance. And so anybody under the age of 18, because often we'll have 11, 12-year-olds and so forth. And they will work with the licensing boards. Here at the University of Alberta with the standardized patient program, I cannot use anyone under the age of 16 actually, because of our insurance. So when we do work for pediatrics and we need someone who's 8 or 12 or whatever, they know that there's a certain amount of, like when they walk into the room, they look at the door, see who they're seeing, 12-year-old Joe, but actually they're probably seeing 30-year-old Peter. But they, as far as they're concerned, they're seeing 12-year-old Joe.
Gotcha. Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Karen. We've got 3 minutes, 2.5.
You mentioned first year, second year, and fourth year. Once a year, there's a program put on in third year to introduce LGBT plus students to. It's a volunteer program. There's no money involved, except we do get a gift card, a Visa gift card, as a thank you for exposing ourselves, so to speak, to a round of third-year students. So, and they're always looking for more people to come in from our community and to sometimes shock some of these students who have never met or known to have met somebody from our community. And it's been very well received all around by the students for the last couple of years. So it's I'm making a pitch in order to try to recruit more people to come join me. We don't usually have enough. Anyway, that's I just want to put a plug in there that there's a third-year program as well. It's
called The Human Story, and I've done it for the last 5 years. And one of the big jokes between my partner and I is that they've never met an elderly gay couple before, and they're blown away by the fact that you get old. They think we live in discos for the rest of our lives, and we're going, no. It gets really slow and boring.
Yeah, it's it was quite an eye-opener for a lot of the students, because they don't realize that we are among them and they don't recognize us until we're in a hospital and they get sidetracked right off, the subject of why their main complaint. We're coming in now with a fracture or pneumonia, and then we are so exotic they forgot why we're there. But it's been well received.
Karen. Yeah. So we're down to our last 30 seconds. I want to give you the last word, Petra or Guy. Do you have any events to advertise? Any last?
I'll just put a pitch in for something I'm doing with the University of Alberta. They're doing an evening on the 13th of March in the Students' Union building at 7:30 to help anybody who wants information on organizing wills. And it's the first time they've targeted elderly LGBTQ folks. And It's during the university's Gay Pride. It's one of the opening events for the Gay Pride Week at the U of A. So that's my next task. No, I have something else not to sleep about.
And I put my email address and phone number in case anyone wants to chat with me.
Well, thank you. That was so inspiring. And thank you to all of you for joining us. I hope we will see you all next week when we will have Hilary Fabrizio, who will discuss legacy giving. You can contact us at agingwithprideyeg@gmail.com. See you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.